Welcome to Politics Now, where we interview candidates for office, federal, state, and local. Today, we're focusing on local for the Clark County Commission with former Secretary of State Ross Miller. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me about why you want to run for county commission. I mean, you were the Secretary of State of Nevada. You ran for statewide office in 2014, ran for Attorney General. Why not go for AG again, statewide office? Why county commission?
You know, I wasn't sure I even want to come back into politics. I grew up in a political family. Yep. My dad served as governor and now a number of other offices, so I always looked with a really realistic viewpoint on politics. I grew up sitting around the dinner table talking about issues and still have a deep passion for it, talking with my kids now about issues. But you got to know what exposes you and your family to. I'm deeply appreciative of the opportunity to serve as Secretary of State for 8 years, but I thought it's time to let somebody else do it. But in this national climate, I'm frankly just a little scared for the future of our country. And when that happens, and I have discussions with my kids about the direction that we're heading, I feel I need to get involved. And this is an area, this is a seat where you can make decisions that will actually affect the community, irrespective of what's happening nationally. As divisive as it may be out there, these are issues that I think that you can see the community unite behind, and really issues that people care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And a county commissioner, I think, has much more impact on people's day-to-day lives than would a member of Congress or a senator or even a president, because you're deciding on things that affect them directly, their neighborhood and all that. It's often said that the county commission, you have an opportunity every 2 weeks to piss off half the people who come before you with a decision. So
I've heard that also. That's not an easy part of the job. Yeah.
So you said you didn't know if you wanted to come back into politics. You've been practicing law in the interim time since you left. It was always thought that the county commission was the graveyard of careers, that no one ever went on from the county commission to anything higher. Lorraine Hunt was the last person to get elected to higher office. She was elected lieutenant governor under Kenny Gwinn. More people have gone to prison from the Clark County Commission than have gone on to higher office in recent years. But Steve Sisolak changed all that. When he was elected governor, he sort of broke that curse. Does that factor in to your decision making at all, that this is now not necessarily an end point, but perhaps a stepping stone? Not really.
Governor Sisolak, I think, had a tremendous record on the county commission. And he obviously accomplished quite a bit, and I think that track record propelled him into be able to run for governor. Like you said, there's no getting around it. You face the critical issues that we see in this county. Every 2 weeks, you said, tick maybe half the people off. So, but I think if you approach the job as trying to communicate with people, understand where they're coming from, and try to cast votes with integrity, where at least they understand that you've researched the issue. And sorry we didn't agree on this one, but you put your platform out there. I think that's all you can expect of elected officials at any level, and I think the current board's doing a fantastic job of that. So I think we got some incredible commissioners on there now. Larry Brown's done an exceptional job for 12 years. I mean, if Larry Brown wanted to run for higher office, there's no doubt in my mind that he could get elected, depending upon who he ran against. But for any number of offices, he's well loved out there. Yeah. And my intention is to try to carry on the good work that he's done.
Let's talk about the agenda. What issues are important to the county do you think that the commission hasn't been addressing that maybe you would want to take on?
Yeah, I think law enforcement needs more resources. As I talk to people that live in my district, which is District C, the northwest part of Las Vegas, I think it's all around the county though. Just dealing with smart growth. So it's really the issues that you would expect, protecting the community, making sure that we implement the right decisions to deal with this growth that we're experiencing again, which is a tremendous positive thing for the community. We want to make sure that the planning is done appropriately. We want to make sure that the community looks like the type of community that people want to live in. We've seen periods in the county commission's history where they're making the right decisions and periods where it's been embarrassing. we've got to make sure we've got the right leadership here as we head into a really exciting time for Las Vegas. So.
You mentioned growth. One of the key components of growth is water. And our community we've been experiencing a drought on the Colorado River for decades. Water is very scarce. The Water Authority has done everything it can to reuse the amount that we get from the Colorado River, which is the smallest of any of the states along the river. But there is a proposal to run a pipeline to eastern Nevada to bring water down here, in part to facilitate future growth, because the Colorado River may not be able to support it. Do you support that proposal? It's probably a $15 to $20 billion project.
Yeah, I support it in principle. These are not easy issues. They're very complex. We could spend the next 6 hours, I think, talking about the intricacies of that proposal.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of work to be done. Unfortunately, I think my dad used to say when he was asked about this, we're in the middle of the desert. You went back to the inception of the state. What were they fighting about? Water. So yeah. I think that this issue, Pat Mulroy took tremendous leadership on that issue and really spearheaded an effort that I hope they get enough momentum to have it move through, because this valley critically needs the resources in order to be able to grow and manage our population as it exists. And
certainly they've done everything short of that pipeline to do it. They've done the third straw to Lake Mead. They've done return flow credits to Lake Mead to generate more water from the river. It doesn't seem like there's any realistic chance of renegotiating the treaty that gives us the amount of water that it gives us. So short of that pipeline proposal or maybe some desalination in California, there really isn't a way to get more water here.
Well, you could declare war on California, or the other members of the compact, I think, right? Which sometimes at the national level feels we're on the cusp
the
of
river
that, right?
And just take it.
Right,
yeah.
right. So,
I guess that's always a possibility. So
we've got some pretty good military resources here.
That's
true.
If
it comes to that.
No wonder you talked about the police first. Yeah,
right.
So this question I will ask, and I admit it's a self-serving question on behalf of the media ahead of time. You were Secretary of State. You dealt with public records. The Clark County Coroner's Office has consistently fought attempts by the media to get autopsy reports in certain cases, child death cases, the October 1st massacre cases, all of those things, not because they're covered by the public records law in terms of confidentiality, but just because the office did not want to give up those records and argued vociferously against it. They've lost a couple of those cases, ended up having to pay attorney's fees in those cases. So the coroner works for the county. Should the coroner just be told, look, unless there's a specific statute that says you can keep something confidential, you got to release it?
Yes, clearly. I mean, I would be a champion, absolutely, if I was elected, for public records, especially in this day and age. You just absolutely have to give clear transparency to the public at a period where there's so much distrust out there about government. And look, I'm scared for the future of our country. If we don't start behaving appropriately and showing the public that elected officials are accountable in implementing things like transparency and open records, we have no chance. That's is a broad statement. That is absolutely where I want to go. Did I read the last 6 Nevada Supreme Court cases on public records? No. A couple of them.
Right.
The one that dealt with juvenile records is for police interrogations, and I know there was one yesterday on the. Yeah. I've been in deposition, so I didn't get a chance to read it. I assume that's a very complicated discussion with arguments on both sides.
Sure.
100%, we should move towards transparency, and they should have to cite a specific statute.
And speaking of transparency, there was an issue that arose in the County Commission that really surprised me, and I'm not surprised by very much. And that was the foster care system and the child care system that's run by the county. Tick Segerblum was concerned about the number of kids that had died in that system and wanted to form a blue ribbon panel to investigate why that was happening. The county staff told him that those records are absolutely confidential and that they couldn't be revealed to anybody, including the commissioners. And I was surprised by that, because the commissioners are the ones who are elected to oversee the county. And here their own staff is saying, well, you can't see the records regarding these deaths. Does something need to change about that? Do we need to change the law?
I hadn't heard about that. That seems absolutely ridiculous to me. This is this is a seat where the public has elected a representative to oversee all of those records. To the extent that there's employees that are claiming that they claim some special privilege that makes no sense to me as I understand the law, makes no sense to me as I understand the policy. There are remedies that you could put in place, protective provisions, confidentiality. Sure. But the idea that the individual is elected by the people in order to serve as to oversee that process isn't allowed to see the records. This is the kind of thing that I think driving people crazy in this country. And we got a lot of reasons for our divisiveness. This is one that we can fix. Is just opening up records, making sure that they're clearly transparent on things. So it's disheartening to hear. I wasn't aware of that issue, but clearly, that seems like something that's got to get fixed. Yeah,
it was definitely a sort of hindrance to accountability, because the staff was saying, like, we're doing our best, we're doing everything we can to monitor the people that are in the foster system, monitor the kids that are in there. Notwithstanding, they were having some serious problems, and when the public comes down to the county commission, it's the commissioner sitting behind the dais. It's not the staff. It's not the quote-unquote bureaucrats, and I say that in a good way, who run the government. They're going to be asking you guys, hey, what's up with this? And for you to be able to answer, I would assume that you would need to be able to get into the cases and find out what really went wrong.
I don't know what's happening with this shift, but it's alarming. I mean, it's one of these issues that makes me mad. I'm litigating a case right now. Department of Taxation handed out marijuana licenses. When they announced the licenses, billions of dollars worth of licenses. We're not going to even tell you who won. You can't know what process we use to evaluate these applicants. I mean, what happened? When I was in office, wasn't that long ago, you would get killed if you took a position like that. Yeah. It was just expected that these are the public records, and the public wants access to them. You better have a very good reason. Continuing law enforcement investigation. You've got a clear public need for why you're trying to protect these records. Something's happened in that people don't have any problem telling you, no, I'm a government official and I'm not giving this over to the public. It makes no sense, and that's a dangerous position to be.
I was going to ask you about the marijuana issue, because the county commission, has a role in licensing marijuana businesses. I was going to ask you, based on your experience, what needs to change with either the state or the federal law with respect to marijuana business regulation that would make it more open and more transparent, so that the public would have some idea that things are being done appropriately, and local governments could have a degree of control as to regulating those businesses?
So that's a lot. Again, we're a 6-hour discussion. Federally, they need to fix all kinds of things. This is an issue, I think, of if they're not going to fix it federally and legalize marijuana, they've at least got to fix all the banking statutes. They've got to allow states to make their individual decisions and communities to make their own decisions. Governor Sisolak, to his credit, when he came into office and we had filed suit, immediately passed a law that opened up all those records. So the Department of Taxation has now turned over quite a great deal of information about what happened last time. He implemented a complete overhaul of the regulatory structure. So they've done tremendous work, I think, to put it on the right path. There's still a lot of work to be done. This is clearly an area that you have to have enough transparency that the public can see what's happening, where these marijuana establishments are going, who owns it, whether or not the regulations are being followed. It is legal now, but this is still an industry that needs to be heavily regulated, and the public has an expectation that they should be able to make sure that this is being monitored appropriately, and that's absolutely the way it should run.
Yeah. One of the things that was not included in the initiative that legalized recreational marijuana was the concept of marijuana lounges, to be able to use it publicly, because now it's legal, you can buy it, you can possess it, but you can't use it in any public place. And so a lot of tourists come here and they think, well, it's legal, so we can use it and smoke it openly, and not realize they're breaking the law. The state looked at it and preempted local governments from being able to license marijuana. marijuana lounges. Should that change? Should local governments be given the authority to license those?
No, I think it should be a state decision. And you know, I think it's something that should be considered. As you know, this recreational marijuana legalization is just in its inception. We still don't know, you know, kind of the impact that it may have on our community, public safety, issues that I think are legitimate for people to bring up. And you know, it's an area that I think people should have reservations, and at least make sure that, you know, to the extent that we're changing how we deal with this, is done appropriately and it doesn't jeopardize public safety.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think, you know, we may get there. But where those lounges, you know, are located, under what terms, you know, it's not something you can rush through. I think it should be part of the legislative process up in Carson City, where you have all the stakeholders at the table, not decided in some, you know, smoky room.
No.
Right.
One of the issues that has really come to the fore lately with the city of Las Vegas is this homeless issue. It seems to be growing. It seems to be more upfront than it has been in the past. The city of Las Vegas's approach was to pass an ordinance that says you can't camp on the sidewalk if there's room in the shelter, and we come and find you and say there's room in the shelter, you got to go, and you refuse, you get a citation. So far that has not really been enforced by law enforcement, but that ordinance is out there. First of all, do you agree with that ordinance, and what ought to be done to tackle the homeless problem in Clark County?
You know, I think the better approach, and this is, frankly, you know, I think one of the primary reasons that I really want to run for this seat is the people that currently sit on it. I'm just extremely impressed with. This is, you know, the homelessness issue is an issue that Chairwoman Kirkpatrick has taken on. And it was one of her primary issues. You know, that's not a very populist issue. I mean, you can't go out there and campaign that you're going to fix homelessness, I don't think. I mean, and win a ton of elections. It's a tough issue. Yeah. But she's done it the right way. She's brought in all the stakeholders that you would need in order to address this. Dealt with, you know, let's deal with mental health. You know, where is this factor in? Let's deal with affordable housing. Let's bring workforce training. You know, let's make sure that we're giving people the resources. Where are these resources in the county being deployed? You know, it does affect people irrespective of which part of the community you live in, even if you're living in, you know, the gated communities in the Ivory Towers to, you know, more central Las Vegas or North Las Vegas, where you're likely to see a lot more homelessness. Yeah. But you can't have it sprawl like it is in Los Angeles. That's the lesson that you learn, I think, as you look at other communities, is how they deal with growth, and the communities that deal with it well, you know, take the kind of steps that Chairwoman Kirkpatrick has done, where they bring all the stakeholders to the table and make sure that you deploy in the right resources in order to deal with it.
Do you think there should be more money for affordable housing at the county level?
We got a lot of problems in the county. Where you deploy those resources, I think, is always a big challenge. Yes, clearly, that is an issue. In how you deal with affordable housing, you know, and where you approve those projects, you know, is another issue. We got to make sure that, you know, if you approve an affordable housing project, that it doesn't strain the infrastructure that already exists. And so, you know, these are challenging issues, and that's why, you know, I'm loving the idea of potentially being able to serve and represent this district, because I'm willing to put in the time and you know, try to communicate with the constituents and gain an understanding of where they think the right decision is.
Obviously, the county is not in charge of the school district. There's a separate board of trustees for that.
Thank you for that.
And a lot of people, when you're going door to door, are going to ask you about the school district, and you're going to have to tell them, right, listen, we're not in charge of that. Even though we're in charge of the county, we're not in charge of the county school district. Right. But notwithstanding that, there have been some efforts at the county level to spend money in support of schools. Sure. There was a sales tax that was passed recently, an authorization for up to a certain amount. The county has authorized less than that amount to do a couple of things like anti-truancy programs and all of that. Do you think that program could be expanded? Can that tax be raised? And if so, what would the money, in your mind, go for things that would help the school district?
Ooh, that's a tough question. You know, I know that Commissioner Kirkpatrick again and Justin Jones, another example, I think have took that issue on and implemented some programs where they expanded the education, preschools in limited instances. You know, clearly we need to provide more funding for education. What the county's role is, again, you know, I think that's a complicated decision, but I'm thankful for the work that they've been doing. I mean, I think we are on the right track to trying to make some real progress here. A lot of challenges still ahead. You know, I don't know, as you mentioned, the commission has very little to do with the Clark County School District. We can make the right decisions on making sure that there's not overcrowding in, you know, any existing schools, not straining the infrastructure. But this is an endemic problem. You know, my dad for 10 years had made education his #1 priority.
Class size
made
reduction.
some progress, yeah. But anytime you deal with communities that grow this quickly, I think is a problem. We're a very diverse community, transient. There's a million issues that make this a very complicated problem to fix, but it's clearly going to be, it is the #1 issue you talk to people about: education, public safety. That's what I'm hearing. So, you know, you can't lose sight of that. To the extent that the commission can play a pivotal role, we need to do that.
There's kind of a trend at the state where you know, raising taxes in Nevada is a very difficult process. It requires a 2/3 vote to do it by constitutional amendment, and the legislature in a couple of recent instances has said we're not going to raise taxes, but we're going to pass the authority to do that onto a local government to raise taxes. Now, this is in contrast to every other policy initiative. They accumulate power to the state and don't let local governments have it, except in the one narrow instance of raising taxes where it might not be popular with the voters. It happened with the more cops tax for police. It happened with this education tax. It's happened on another couple of occasions. One of the big issues that affects all local government, the county, the school district, all of local government, is the property tax issue. Because of the way the recession was, there was a cap put on during the boom years. Now that the recession has happened, that cap is retarding the growth of property taxes. A lot of people have said, listen, we need to change that, we need to fix that. If the legislature passes that as a solution, as an option for the county government, first of all, I'm sure you'll be sending them a fruit basket in thanks for that opportunity. But do you think that cap needs to be adjusted and those property taxes need to come up? Because local governments are being starved of revenue that they ordinarily would have with the good economy, with the growth, with the increase in housing prices.
I don't think that the property taxes necessarily need to be you know, increased. You know, I think we need to find a way to deal with our anticipated growth and the strain on the existing infrastructure. However, that doesn't mean I'm in favor of growing government, you know, in this area of talking points. But, you know, we also can't starve this community from the resources that we need in order to be able to make this community what it's always been, you know, a place that people want to move to, where the American dream still exists, where you think, I can't make it in my community, but in Las Vegas, I can do that. And that has always existed since my grandfathers came here, both of them. One very blue collar, and the other one, you know, from the gaming industry when it was illegal in Chicago. I think this is truly one of the last frontiers where the American dream exists, and that only exists if you invest in the infrastructure and give a community resources in order to let that dream thrive. And so you need resources in order to do that. Where that revenue comes from, bigger challenge. Nobody wants to take that vote. I get it. But you know, sometimes there are tough votes, as you mentioned. I'm willing to take some tough votes here.
Sounds good. Well, we will see if that happens, if you get elected to the county commission. So I appreciate you coming down and spending the time with us, and good luck in the campaign.
Thank you. Appreciate it.